Hi there, math fans. I'm going to make a short video here just to start my sports video series. And this one's going to be about basketball timeouts, which I think are extremely weird. You know, in our youth sports, this is like 10 or 12 and under. Typically, we have like 2 of these. It's different depending on the tournament and the league. 2 30-second timeouts and 2 60-second timeouts. And I've talked to coaches and friends about this, and I think it is just very odd that we have both. Basketball is one of the few sports that has timeouts, and I guess because they have timeouts, they thought, let's have 2 types. Now let me explain where this is coming from. My wife has coached middle school, high school basketball, youth basketball, and many times I'm at the score table. I'm standing there sometimes next to like a kid, keeping track of the score, the stats, and everything. And I often would have refs come over at halftime and say, how many timeouts does each coach have? And then they would say, is it a 60 or a 30-second timeout? And after a while I thought, does it matter? For youth sports, what happens is a coach calls timeout. There's a long discussion where the ref goes over to the coach and they're like, is it 30 second? Is it full? And they have to do the whole motion. They have to go over to the desk. By then it's already been 30 seconds. And they have this communication. And then they're like, the desk's like, well, they don't have a 67 timeout. So you go back to the coach, 30 seconds? No, 60 seconds? 30 seconds? 60 seconds? And it's this long back and forth. And then what happens in youth sports is the refs go over and talk for a while. Sometimes they shoot a couple baskets, and then when they get bored, they blow the whistle. No one actually keeps track of the time. That's been my experience with the 30-second, 60-second timeout, at least when you're under 12, is it wastes a whole bunch of time. So it really bothered me. And after a while, I was like, the refs kept asking me, how many seconds? Do they get a 60? Do they get a 30? Do we do this? Do we do this? And I thought it was the most ridiculous thing ever, since no one even kept the time and the ref just blew the whistle. And even I think that extends to high school sports. I'm watching my daughter play high school sports, and they'll be like timeout, and the coach will be like 30-second. And I never have seen a coach get a technical for calling a 30-second when he only had 60 seconds available. I would love to see that call. I would be so excited the day that happened. Technical foul. You don't have any 30-second timeouts. So I just find this to be a hilarious overcomplication of things. Now, the truth is there are some reasons people do this. They're like, oh, it's going to be a quick timeout, a long timeout. I just don't know the history. I was trying to look it up. I did look up, a timeout in basketball. Other people have done tons of research on this, which I find funny because some of my family is like, why do you waste your time with math? And I think, there's these other people that are doing research on basketball timeouts. You're saying I'm wasting my time? So I just find it funny. But anyways, there is a stats that they did the NCAA tournament, and they said that for the 5 minutes before a timeout and the 5 minutes after, typically the team that does better, whoever called the timeout, it's worth about 2 points in those 5 minutes, the change in the differential. So it's a momentum stopper more than anything else, but I understand that there's reasons people do the 30 and 60. I just don't know why it's in youth sports. If you just want to have 4 timeouts, have 4 timeouts. I still don't even understand for college and NBA, why do we have this complicated thing? But then I switched my thinking, and I was talking to some friends, and we thought, you know what, let's make it more complicated, or let's game the system. So if you're towards the end of a game and you want a little more time as a coach, you should say timeout and put one hand up and one hand to the side. And then talk to your players really quick. The ref will be confused. That'll give you a few more seconds. The ref will come over and he'll be like, which one did you call? And then somehow do it wrong again. And then the other guy has to come over and then call it. And by then you'll have gotten 15, 20 more seconds. And then call the short timeout. And then he'll go over and call it. And that's how you gain time, by using the confusion factor. So that's one strategy. Strategy 2 is, okay, so let's call this 180 seconds. So I think we should overcomplicate it. You should get in, maybe I should split, you can't do half a second timeout. So let's say you're allowed 180 opportunities. You get allowed this much time, and you can call them as many as you want. If you want to simplify a little bit, you could say, divide it by 4, and do 45 seconds a quarter. So let's say you get 45 seconds each quarter to do with as you want. And what I want the call to be is you say timeout with your hand, and then you flash a certain number of fingers. Timeout 7. And the ref has to come over and look, and he sees your 7. And so then the ref goes over to the desk, and he says timeout that team 7 seconds. And then they start the clock, and at the end of 7 seconds, everyone has to sprint back out, and then you deduct that from your total, and you have 38 seconds left. And you'd have a separate scoreboard that would just be the seconds left in your timeouts, and you could go for a 1 second timeout, 1 second. You could have a different motion for each one. And I just think that's better. So if you have other ideas for making it even more complicated to call a timeout in basketball, I would love them. I think maybe if there was a dance involved, if you had to do a handstand, I just think it's not complicated enough. And so we should add a little more. All right. Thanks for listening.